Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm your host, Eliana Carnodal. Several Oklahoma school leaders have reportedly signaled their opposition to the state's top education official over a mandate to include the Bible in classroom instruction sent out last month. Joining me to discuss this is Chalkboard News editor Brendan Clary. Brendan, let's start with the background here. What is this mandate?
Yeah, so Eliana, that's a great question. Basically, this mandate it requires schools in Oklahoma to incorporate instruction on the Bible in classrooms. So it's a physical copy of the Bible, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Ten Commandments must be provided to every teacher as resources in every classroom in the school district. So that is the specifics of this. And it was kind of alluded to without the specifics last month. So in the end of June, Superintendent Walters' office sent out, the letter to school districts saying this is what we're planning on, and we're updating the guidance. So that's essentially what it is. And then so that those are the specifics of it, like that. There's the Oklahoma law that kind of allows school districts to pick the stuff, but this is the directive that the Bible will be taught in schools.
So then, just to be clear, this is like a directive coming from the superintendent's office. It's not like a law necessarily. Like, how does that work? Right.
So yeah, this is a mandate from the superintendent of public instruction, that Superintendent Ryan Walters. It's coming from his office and saying this is what you must do. It's sent out to public schools, right? So it's been called a mandate or a requirement, and essentially, basically, this is in the purview of our office. We can tell schools this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're interpreting the law, essentially. So there are laws on the books about, I think with these education agencies, the superintendent's office, you can kind of interpret, and this is something that we've seen a lot of, schools doing on certain issues of like equity issues or different kinds of like gender issues of basically taking the liberty there that's entrusted to them in law and then creating guidelines based on that. So I think that the way that they're doing that is using like social studies context, for example, so that it's saying, that this is a historical document and that it's in line with like the state standards on social studies and different kinds of like historical, literary, artistic significance there. So I think that that's, the way that they're going about this, if I understand that correctly.
And how are school leaders responding to this?
Not super well. The Oklahoma's NPR, they put out a report today that found 13 public school districts in the state are basically defying pushing back against the Superintendent Walters' mandate here and said, we're not going to teach it. We're going to focus on what is previously in place, and we're not going to sort of teach this kind of thing. And so it's not going super well. Those are 13. Some of those are around like some of the more suburban or urban districts around some of the larger cities, like Tulsa. Like Tulsa Public Schools is one of those, Norman Public Schools as well. So, there's a lot of these different school districts. They're saying the same kind of things of like students can, bring their religious texts to school and, they're free to have their own things, but we're not going to teach these things from, the front of the classroom. So I think that that's a very interesting, like you kind of have a conflict there of here's what the superintendent is doing and here's what school districts are saying about the issue.
And even prior to this, state legislators had weighed in. What were their thoughts on this? Yeah,
so they were very critical of this directive, right? And I think that it kind of points to as well, like sort of the divide between, the establishment. There was some early pushback from the Norman Public School District where the superintendent said, we're not going to comply with this. And then there was a lot of praise from state lawmakers saying, we stand with the superintendent who's not going to go along with this. Basically, they said stuff like Bibles are allowed in the classrooms and, but there shouldn't be like a mandate to have a Bible in every classroom or that there shouldn't be like a requirement to teach it. So that's what a Democratic lawmaker said. So I think that that's like, and then also criticizing Ryan Walters directly and calling this like a push to move into, quote, a theocratic kingdom or like socialized Christian nationalism. So, and kind of really going to the throat there on Walters, who is trying to revamp sort of traditional Western values in the classroom. He's couched it that way of saying like it's time to bring back some of these like Western ideals and bring back, the founding documents. So I think that that's, one of Ryan Walters' goals, and he's being, lambasted for that by these lawmakers.
So how has Superintendent Walters responded to the pushback from school leaders?
Yeah, that's a great question. He's doubled down. He said, we are going to enforce this, and if teachers refuse to go along with this, then they could lose their jobs or their license, essentially. So I believe that the state, his office, would be able to penalize teachers who don't follow it. And, I think that's riling up a lot of people. But, there's, a broader question there of like, how far are they going to go with this is probably going to be challenged in court. There's, questionable, like how much, and we were talking about that. It's not a law. It's kind of a question of like, how much will Superintendent Walters' office be able to defend its ability to make these kinds of rules, and like how binding are they if it's just a rule that they're kind of going by. So it's going to have to probably go through the courts and take a lot of time. It just, there's a lot of different kind of barriers that could pop up because of this. But essentially he's saying you're going to have to do this or else we're going to come after you. And we'll use the power of the state to go after teachers who are not going to teach this.
Well, this is a very interesting situation and plays into conversations we've had before about kind of the debate over local versus state versus federal and what parts they have to play in decision making in schools. And it's also part of the broader cultural debates around education and what should be allowed in schools and that whole controversy. And I'm sure we will continue to follow this as developments arise, if any court cases come up, things like that. And listeners can keep up with this at chalkboardnews.com.